we were discussing the taking bands on the road. It's an interesting, I think people from the outside, when they're, they've purchased the record and they've followed you over the years and so on and so forth, they just assume that you can play wherever you want, take whoever you want, it's entirely up to you, and they don't realize that, those tours, you don't know how much money you're going to make. Yeah, there's some guarantees, but most of the time it's, there's like a rough guesstimate of how much you're going to make. And I know guys over the years that, I think you did a tour with Klaus or two, did you not, over in Deutschland?
Yeah.
And I got hooked up with Klaus probably 2003 or 4. And I had no idea what was going to transpire. And it's turned out right over the years. But what was interesting to me is that he would have guys that would want to tour with named dudes. And so he would basically pay the rhythm section all the money he was going to make from the tour in terms of the guarantees and pretty much all the door money, right? Yeah. And so all that money was for those guys, and then he just kept all the merch money. And if you toured long enough, there was that sweet spot where he would make dough. But then, to your point, it's like, even though you're paying these guys, that doesn't mean they're into it. That doesn't mean they're going to lift a finger to, I'm not going to say they're all like that, but
yeah,
if they don't have a artistic vested interest in doing it, they're going to be kind of mercenary about it. Whereas, I always used my band, but because, I'm not in a music center. I've always had guys that were like, yeah, let's go over and what happens. And it always turns out where we make decent money. But then, they really want to go, and it's they're into it. They want to help do whatever is going to make it successful. They're having fun. Yeah, let's go see that castle, as opposed to give me my room and give me my advance. You know what I mean? Give me my per diem. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I know the language, but it's interesting how when you have your own band, you're doing this. You gotta wear all these different hats. It just isn't waking up every day and say, "Oh, I get to go play guitar today."
No, I have this conversation quite often with other musicians and with fans. When the inevitable question is, why don't I ever come here, or why don't I ever go there, or why isn't Gary Novak with me at this gig, right? Or why isn't this or that? And it's like you said, people from the outside don't really have that perspective. I've been on those tours where all the money went to the rhythm section, and I was lucky to break even, let alone not lose money. And even doing that, it wasn't the rhythm section I even wanted to take. It was the guys who were available and would go for the amount of money I had to offer, which still was paying me nothing.
Right.
And so I reached the limit on doing that. And that's when it became, okay, how do I go and at least make sure I'm coming home with something in my pocket? And so that even makes the options even less. It's like using musicians, local to where you're going, or finding young guys from MI. Well, that lasts for one tour, and I'm never happy either because I'm fucking picky motherfucker. And it's like it's a tough, that's, like I said, my biggest hurdle. Not much time is put into the thought of how do I make this show the best show it could be. Right. All the thought is to put into how do I make this show even happen.
Exactly. I understand.
Dude, I couldn't imagine what it would be like to actually plan out, I'm around Joe all the time, to think about putting a show together where maybe there was a stage and I could bring the guitars that worked for this song only and still have that guitar, and someone will hand it to me. It'll be ready for that song, and I can really put together a show and make it the best I can make it. I don't know what those thought processes like at all.
Yeah, it's a rarefied situation. I mean,
it'd be nice to be able to get to those problems.
Right. I mean, but in an interesting way though, it's like when you're on those bigger tours, and again, these are just observations. I'm not saying better, worse, or indifferent, but when you finally get to the point where, okay, you're going to go on a 3-week tour of, say, mainland Europe or whatever the case may be, and you're going to make enough money where you're not stressed out about people being pissed off about not making money.
Right.
That is a huge thing. I mean, where
That's
you're just like, everyone's cool. What's going to happen is what's going to happen. And then you can kind of just relax. But the good thing about being at that mid-level where you're just like, you're getting up, you're driving a few hours, sometimes more hours than you'd wish, but you got someone who's driving the vehicle. And then you got a little time to sightsee. You can stop wherever you want. You don't have to worry about a bus. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you can kind of do a little sightseeing and so on and so forth. You do the sound check, you hang out, you can restring your guitars, you do whatever. And you play you get that sweet spot where it's like, this is cool. Any bigger, it's going to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's get more complex, and there's going to be more people, and there's going to be more pressure, all that kind of stuff. But when you finally just reach that spot where it's like, okay, the band's cool. They're going to have I know they're going to have a good time. They're not going to be bugging me 4 days in. Well, how were the numbers last night?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I hit my bonus. Yeah.
And you're a little bit more free. You're not as beholden. Am I right? I mean,
I'd be happy to reach that level forever if I could just keep the same rhythm section.
Right.
I'd stay in the van and do those gigs if I could just play with the same guys, because that's the other half of the equation. Is to be happy in that situation is to be playing with guys who are like-minded, who know my whole catalog, and we have a real language with. I can call out a song that we haven't played in 3 months, and they know it. I can do this. I can do that. We can have a real rapport and build something together. Because, going from this to this to this, I end up playing whatever set I remember to send to these people and whatever charts I remember to include. And, again, it's all the thought is into just making that show happen.
Right.
And so, it would be nice to at least just play with the same guys so that more organic things can happen and more thought can go into the music side of it. And it's been interesting, not that, I'm anybody, but I'm sure you've noticed it in the last few years because of this stuff and social media and Instagram. I have seen at least some steam be picked up behind the name and yours and some of my other friends, and it's helping a tremendous bit. But it's also creating a situation where sometimes when I get to towns for the first time, people expect me to show up in a bus like I'm Joe,
right?
Because they see me in these worlds all the time and think I'm killing it. I'm crushing it right now,
right?
And then I break a string and I have to change it myself on the bandstand, and they're like, "What the hell?"
Right. I get it. But but your point about the internet thing has definitely somewhat leveled the playing field in terms of not having to be beholden to the arbiters of taste. You know what I mean? The stuff's just out there, and people. Granted, it's still there's a vast majority of people who still need to be led by the nose hairs to go all in on a particular artist and so on and so forth, to the point where they're willing to shell $100 for a ticket or something. Right. But by the same token, someone who's interested in music can, if they're curious, they can investigate, they can discover someone, access all the records, videos online, all that kind of stuff. And so you can get to the point where you can show up to pretty much any country, any city in the world, and if there's a modicum of advertising, you're going to get enough people there to make it worthwhile coming. And that's the freedom I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
That's unbelievably humbling to know now. I go to some of these countries for the first time and people show up.
Yes.
It's like they only know me from Instagram and YouTube, and then they eventually buy my records or buy this or buy that. But that's how I got in the door, and that's wow, it is humbling. Just like even what we were talking about with the lessons, just the fact that I put that out there and 45 lessons got signed up for in hours.
Right.
It's like, wow, that's amazing to me.
Awesome.
I can't believe that I have enough people that care about what I do. That there's nothing more humbling than that,
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But you play your ass off, so there you go.
Well, I try. I mean, we can't all be you, man.
What? Well, we've sure had some fun playing together. We need to do more of that.
Yeah, we do.
There's some
I think people like us playing together.
I think it's a very conversational thing, and this, it's one of the things I talked to David Grissom about, and we've done some playing together too, and we talked about the whole thing where it's like, it's we live in such a competitive culture where, and people are like, herded into camps, and they want to be able to attach their identity to their favorite flavor and want this to be a battle of him versus him. But, guitar players reach a level where you just want to have fun and communicate on stage, and have this conversation. And that if you're confident in who you are and what you do, it's not a matter of what you can't do or whatever or what the other guy do that you can, or vice versa. It's a matter of you just be you, and then you have this conversation with each other. And when it does that, which I experience every time we play together, it's a blast, and people dig it because they realize there isn't that thing happening. You know what I mean?
Well, because you can't, when you see something completely spontaneous and filled with joy, how do you deny it? You know what I mean? Like when two people are just having a good time, making something up out of thin air.
Right.
But they're talking to each other and they're reacting. What's better than that? You know what I mean? And that's the way I always approach jam situations. It's funny. I'll take some shit sometimes in the jam situation when there's more than two guitar players, when there's 3 or 4. I'm willing to be the guy that sings and passes it around and doesn't even take a solo on a song.
Sure.
I want to hear these guys. I love every one of them. You know what I mean? And whatever. Not everybody needs a solo every minute, and it's not a competition. People on YouTube can argue about, oh, he handed it to him in this or whatever.
Right.
I'm just there to make music and have a good time.
Exactly correct.
Yeah.
And we're going to be doing more of that, hopefully, in the UK. But we got to figure out a time for us to come back out there and finish our record out there.
Yeah, man. I was looking forward to doing that.
Oh, me too. But we'll do it, by God.